That's called kinesicism.
Can't you get a degree in that?
You could be a stand-up comic by doing that.
You're thinking of kinesiology.
Oh, I thought that's the study of weather.
No, that's astrology.
Did you know that we have aliens according to someone on Oath?
How does that affect LeBron James' legacy?
Under oath. How do you get under an oath?
I don't know. You're the legal expert. You tell us.
I wish. My brain no worky, so I couldn't tell you.
This should be a good one. You know why?
For why?
Punch it to me!
What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the ColbyCast, where we dive into movies,
1.21 gigawatts!
TV,
Sometimes I'll start a sentence, and I don't even know where it's going. I just hope I find it along the way.
and everything in between.
Well, I don't know how you get a podcast, but you should look into it.
I'm Colby, and I'm joined by my two awesome sons, Caleb
I don't know how to tie my shoes.
and Luke.
I never shut up.
Together, we're your friendly neighborhood pop culture nerds, here to share our thoughts on Star Wars, Marvel, the latest entertainment news, and maybe even some sports.
You believe in miracles? Yes!
So grab a piece of cake
Cake! Everybody loves cakes.
and find a comfy spot on the couch, because this is your place for community and conversation about pop culture and storytelling.
What an incredible smell you've discovered.
It's beginning to look a lot like Christmas.
Hey, you know what? Now that we're talking about Christmas, I wanted to bring this up, but you gave me the perfect segue. I want to see Red One.
I heard it's pretty good. I would like to see it as well.
I heard that it's going to lose a bunch of money.
Yeah, it looks pretty
It's a-
trash.
It's an interesting conversation because it's not as straightforward as that. So go ahead and continue your thought on it, and I will give you my thoughts.
Oh, my thought is just it's a win-win for me because it either is a good movie, and then I get to go watch a good movie, or it's a really bad movie and I get to laugh at a really bad movie.
You think it looks like trash? You said, Caleb.
Oh yeah, I thought that's what it was supposed to be about.
Chris Evans is in it. The Rock is in it. J. Jonah Jameson, whose name I can't remember, is in it. Lucy Liu is in it.
So
Yeah.
Money's not real, and
Well,
by no means
obviously.
have I ever seen $250 million. But I feel like that's not a lot for movies anymore.
That's a massive budget. It's a huge budget.
Oppenheimer was 100 million.
Yeah.
What was?
Oppenheimer?
It only made $34 million this past weekend.
That's why I want to see it.
But here's the thing. It was never planned to be released in theaters. It's an Amazon-produced movie that was going to originally, I just read this morning, it was originally going to go straight to Amazon Prime. It was never going to have a theatrical release. But after the movie was made, blah, 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 fast forward, Amazon bought MGM Studios, and at some point in the process said, you know what, let's release this to theaters. And it made
They realized
$34 million.
how stupidly expensive the movie was and said, let's try and make some money back.
Well, maybe that's a very realistic possibility, but I don't understand the economics of streaming. But like these huge streamers like Amazon and Netflix, they can make these massively huge budgeted things and apparently not care about getting any money back. Maybe they make their money other ways. I don't understand it. But it was never going to hit theaters. They decided to put it into theaters. So really the $34 million that it made this past weekend is sort of, I guess, bonus. So yay? Question mark. Anyway, that's why I think it's interesting. What it also means is if it performs poorly in the theaters, it's going to go to Amazon more quickly, and we can probably watch it maybe even on Thanksgiving. I don't know, or the day after Thanksgiving. I went to Pittsburgh. Remember?
Oh yeah.
I wanted to tell you guys a quick story about my Uber driver, because the other day Caleb, you asked me, when I ride in an Uber, do I sit in the front or the back?
That
And
was
I
Luke.
answered, Luke, you asked me that?
Yep.
Well, you guys look so much alike. I confuse you guys.
Good to know you're paying attention.
So I sit in the back because I feel like that's the right answer, right? Is that what you guys do?
That's the right answer.
Okay. My follow-up question then is, when you are taking an Uber and you're sitting in the back, what is your opinion on conversation?
If they don't talk to me, they get 5 stars.
So you want now? Do you go as far as to set the preference to no conversation?
Yeah.
Because you can do that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you do that?
Yep.
Yeah, me too.
So
What do you
you
think
do
they're going
that
to be
too?
offended? Like,
No, I don't.
I
Yeah,
don't know. I just would rather not.
Caleb,
Yeah,
what is your?
the last time I was in an Uber, it hasn't been recent, was when Britt and I were catching like a 3 a.m. bus from one part of France to another part of France, but we needed an Uber to get from our Airbnb to the bus, and it was literally like 2:30 in the morning, and I don't speak French. Brittany doesn't speak French. This Uber
Since
driver
when?
didn't speak English, and we were trying to communicate. We figured it out. I just pulled out Google Translate and I thanked him very much. And we literally only spoke through Google Translate.
That's blowing my mind. Like, I'm 12-year-old nerd Colby is geeking out right now that we can just talk through. Well, I was going to say talk through a telephone, but that makes no sense. Speak other languages through like this electronic device.
Yeah.
It's sometimes like one moment I'm like, oh my gosh, this world is so amazing, and then I'm just like, oh, this world, what is this world?
Yeah,
So
exactly.
you guys just spoke to each other using Google Translate.
Yes, it was only before we got in the car and after we got in the car. That was it.
So I took 3 Ubers in Pittsburgh. One from the airport to the hotel. It was after like, it was like 11 o'clock at night, and this poor Uber driver, he was very nice. He put my bag in his trunk. I sat back in the back seat. As soon as he got in the car and closed the door, he's like, "You're my last ride. There's no rides tonight. I'm going home."
That's pretty funny.
I noticed as when he pulled up that he had Ohio plates. I'm in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, which is not too far geographically from the state line, I'm sure, of Ohio. But still, he then proceeded to tell me, I have a 3-hour drive home, so I'm done. It was 11 o'clock.
Woof.
Like, why are you here? Why? What?
That
Thank you
is
for being here.
brutal.
That's rough. That's rough. Second Uber drive was into Pittsburgh, because where I was a little bit outside of Pittsburgh. But on Wednesday, I went to go see the Penguins game. Penguins versus LJ Souter's favorite team, the Detroit Red Wings. The Red Wings won in overtime, and I got to hear a bunch of very upset Penguins fans, which was entertaining. That Uber drive, I didn't speak to the man except for hello, how are you doing? Thank you. But we did sit in silence, complete silence, for about 5-6 minutes, and sitting in traffic too. We weren't moving. Thank God Mom called. I had a wonderful conversation with Mom all the way into Pittsburgh. Went to the game, ate at Primanti Brothers. Awesome sandwich. They put french fries on it. Highly recommend. Got to see a wonderful park in the pitch dark nighttime where the three rivers meet. All awesome. And then on the way back, cool dude named Joshua picked me up in Uber, and I'm not exaggerating. The conversation started as soon as I stepped in the vehicle, didn't end until he dropped me off at the hotel. We had the coolest conversation. He was just telling me all kinds of things about Pittsburgh. Then we got into pop culture stuff. Big Star Wars fan, big Star Trek fan, big Marvel fan, and we just had ourselves a lovely conversation. So if you get somebody cool like that, I highly recommend having a nice Uber conversation. You might want to try it someday.
Well, you have a podcast, so you're supposed to talk to people, or we only talk to you.
That's fair, and I did bring up the ColbyCast. I let him know that I have a podcast with my two awesome sons, and we talk about all this stuff. And it's called the ColbyCast. And then he immediately started saying, "Oh, do you make a lot of cheese jokes?"
Nah.
And I'm like, "Bro, I have never even considered making cheese jokes on my podcast, even though my name is part of the Cheddar family." So my question to you guys is, how many cheese jokes can we work into every episode now? Because Joshua was an outside of the box thinker and made this wonderful suggestion to me.
The
Are you
cheese
asking
cast.
like what the limit is?
No, I'd like to see how many we can make.
Oh, I don't know. Maybe we need to dedicate an episode to that.
Just talking about cheese.
No,
I actually love that. I love that idea.
that would be too cheesy.
See, I already don't like it.
Yeah, it tasted bad as it left my mouth.
You know what
As
doesn't
cheese
taste bad?
happens to do.
Dipping Hawaiian rolls into ramen.
Huh?
Oh,
Is it
fancy.
spicy ramen?
What?
Is it spicy ramen?
Yeah.
That makes sense. That sounds good.
Mm-hmm.
Just to continue real quick with the cheese, I have a very large complaint to file against the Pittsburgh Penguins and PPG Arena. Sorry, PPG Paints Arena.
PPG Pain Arena.
I wanted a Wetzel's Pretzels. I wanted a cinnamon sugar Wetzel's Pretzels, and they had no Wetzel's Pretzels. At least where I was sitting. And I went on a little bit of a jaunt around the upper ring of the arena, and I saw on the menu a Bavarian pretzel, and I'm thinking, oh man, I'm in Pennsylvania. I remember being in Chicago years ago and eating some wonderful pretzel breadsticks on the table of some restaurant for a hockey tournament. Caleb, you remember you were there. So immediately in my mind, I'm thinking, I'm going to get these pretzels. And what they gave me was the most bland, boring pretzel right off of the hook. It was already stale, and it came advertised with a cheddar bacon sauce that they had ran out of, so they just gave me the regular old cheese sauce that they put on the nachos. So I ate a stale, boring pretzel, dipping it in nacho cheese sauce.
Are you
And
complaining about cheese?
well, you continued on with the cheese. So I just thought of my bad experience. If the cheese were on the nachos, it would have been great. But the pretzel, ugh.
So you wanted pretzel cheese.
I wanted the cheddar bacon dipping sauce that was going to come with my Bavarian pretzel, which I don't think was Bavarian. And they didn't have the cheese sauce I was looking for.
And they gave you nacho cheese.
Nacho cheese. I don't even think there was a joke in there, but anytime you make a punchline nacho cheese, I just laugh at it.
Nacho cheese.
Now see, this is what Joshua, if you're listening to this, Uber guy, I hope you're happy because now you've begun this whole cheese revolution on the ColbyCast.
Yes.
I'm gonna complain about something too, and then Caleb, you can complain about something. But no, you already complained about Christmas, so that was your thing. I'm gonna
Yeah,
complain.
you Grinch.
Me? I didn't complain about Christmas.
That was just in my head. I want to complain about Morongo Casino Resort and Spa.
I can't wait.
I went to Coachella Valley to coach a hockey game, which, if you've never been to Coachella Valley this time of year, don't go. It sucks.
Is there another time of year that you would recommend going?
No, I wouldn't, because it sucks. So I went there and I had to stop to charge my car on the way back. So I stopped at Morongo Casino Resort and Spa to charge my car. And I had about 40 minutes to kill. So I was like, let me go check out the blackjack tables, see how they're doing. And blackjack isn't my game. I know how to play it. I sort of understand it, but that's not my game. I like roulette because I'm a simple man with a simple brain and I like watching the wheel spin with colors on it.
Pause. The ColbyCast does not endorse gambling in any way, shape, or form. Thank you.
If you have a gambling problem, please call.
Yes.
Unless we get
Gambling
like a
hotline.
sponsor from FanDuel or something, then
ESPN bets. Here we are giving away free stuff again. Stop it. Okay, unpause. Go back to your complaints.
So I don't like going to the tables that are full because I, like my Uber, don't like to talk unless I'm with like a group or whatever, the people I know. I don't want to go to the tables and start talking to random strangers and be like, "Hey, how are you? What are you up to? How's your experience going?" And the only table that was somewhat empty was a $25 hand table, which was the most expensive one they had. So I was like, "All right, I guess I'll go to that one." And
Boy, I need to start charging you rent.
so
You can take it out of our ColbyCast pay.
Yeah, take it out of my check. I'll direct deposit it directly from 0 to 0. So I sit down. It's just me and one other dude, and we're doing really, really well. Both of us are winning, and it's a good time. Nobody's talking. It's a perfect experience. And I went up an undisclosed amount of money, and then the dealer spilled half the deck all over the table. Just dropped it. And we had to sit there while they came and counted every single card.
I guarantee you they did that on purpose.
So that's what somebody told me, but we weren't up very much.
You think they have a lot of revenue on a Sunday?
Have you been there? That place
No,
is
never.
banging.
Is
I
it
had never
actually?
been there. I sort of thought it was going to be like a little hole in the wall thing. No, that thing is like a legit Vegas casino style.
Wow.
And
And it has like foot traffic?
oh yeah, no, dude, there's the casino floor was huge.
So much for God's Day.
What was that?
So much for God's Day.
Yeah, right. So, we have to sit there, and the lady looks like she just saw a ghost, and she's like, "I'm so sorry. I have to call my supervisor." They come and they count every single card, and I asked how many decks were in the shoe, and it was a 6-deck shoe, so 52 cards times 6, and it was only half the
312
deck that she
cards?
dropped. But yeah,
Wait.
they had to come count all 6 decks and verify
Oh
each
my
card was
God.
there. Then she was like, "Oh, it'll only be a minute. Don't go anywhere. It'll only be a minute." And we were there for 15 minutes.
And you couldn't leave?
We could, but where was I gonna go? All the other tables were full, so I sat there watching football.
I don't believe in karma. I don't believe in signs. That is a sign if I've ever seen one.
Yeah. So I was like, all right, well, I guess I'll just sit here. And the waitress lady came and brought me a water. And I drank my water and I watched football. And like 15 minutes later, they come and then they switch dealers. And then for the second time, I thought, I should probably walk away. Then it was a water. It was a water. I promise it was a water. I was very dehydrated. But then 2 other people show up and sit down, and it ruined the whole thing. I was up an undisclosed amount of money, and then I lost all of the money that I had just made, plus an extra $20, and then I got up and walked away. So
And for those counting at home, Mom, that was $3. He went up, $3 he went down.
So Morongo Casino Resort and Spa, you owe me for spilling your cards all over your deck. And for those listening, free gambling
Spilling
advice. If someone
spilling
spills a deck all over your
your
table,
your
get up and
deck.
walk away.
You said spilling your cards all over your deck.
Well,
Or it's
maybe they were
deck
playing
all over your
blackjack
table.
on the deck of their boat on
Yeah,
a river cruise, and the dealer had a handlebar mustache that he would, "Hey, Sonny." I don't know how is that how they speak?
sure.
You also
I guess.
don't twirl up a handlebar mustache.
Whatever. I don't have a handlebar mustache, so I don't know how they work. But while you were telling your riveting story about spilling decks everywhere, I made a couple calls. I texted a few people, and we have our first sponsor for the ColbyCast. So, just putting this out there. Hey there, podcast pals. Are you tired of watching your favorite sports teams with nothing but a bag of chips and a dream? Well, it's time to level up your game with Bet Your Bottom Dollar, the only betting site that guarantees you'll lose money in style. That's right. With Bet Your Bottom Dollar, you can place bets on everything from who's going to win the Super Bowl to how many nachos your buddy can eat during halftime. Spoiler alert, it's more than you think. And let's not forget our exclusive feature, the What Were You Thinking bet. You can wager on the most ridiculous predictions you can imagine. Like, will your neighbor finally mow their lawn this year? Or will your cat actually catch that elusive laser pointer? But wait, there's more. Sign up today, get a free $10 credit, because we believe in giving you just enough to lose before you can even start. And if you don't lose it at all, we'll throw in a complimentary "I'm not a gambler, I'm an optimist" t-shirt, perfect for those awkward family gatherings. So why wait? Head over to betyourbottomdollar.com and start betting on things that really matter, like whether or not your favorite team will actually show up this season. Remember, folks, if you're not betting, are you even living? Bet your bottom dollar, where the odds are never in your favor, but at least the laughs are guaranteed.
Well done.
Use code ColbyCast for negative $10 at checkout.
I feel the need to reiterate that the ColbyCast does not endorse gambling in any way, and
That's also
we are not sponsored by Bet Your Bottom Dollar because that's not real. That's fake.
satire, people. This is a joke.
Did you say flat tire?
Yes, flat tire, people.
So why are we here? Why are we here today, boys? What are we talking about tonight?
Ramble and mash words together.
We do it very
Told
well.
me that you're gonna kick me out if I don't come on the podcast.
And then I said, and you need to start talking about gambling.
Exactly.
We have not forgotten about all of our Penguin fans out there. We managed to watch the last 3 episodes and are here to talk about it. I actually wanted to do something a little bit different to start out our conversation about the show. Because based on our previous 2 episodes that we've recorded about it, from episodes 1 through 6, go check it out if you haven't already. We all are enjoying the show. I don't know how you guys feel about the last 3 episodes or how it concluded, or your feelings on the show now that it's a complete season. So I wanted to try something different. I had an interesting conversation with a couple of my friends, and they weren't sold on it. A couple of them had started watching, it didn't grab them. Other people were saying it wasn't really quite their style. So I wanted to, number one, I want to ask you guys if you enjoyed the show overall, number one. Number two, would you recommend the show to people just in general? And lastly, why would you recommend it if you would? Now, we're going to do this non-spoiler, so don't put any spoilers in there. Just a real quick, did you like it? Would you recommend it? And why would you recommend it? No spoilers. Who wants to go first?
I enjoyed the show. I would recommend the show to other people, and I have recommended the show to other people because I think the story is good. I think the acting is incredible. I enjoyed the action as well, even though there isn't a ton of it. And I also forgot what the third question was.
No, you'd already answered that one. It was just why would you recommend it, which is what you were going into.
Oh
So
yeah. I really enjoyed the show. I watched the last 3 episodes today, and I was trying very hard to avoid spoilers, which there were a surprising amount of spoilers out there because it was a very well received, and it was a show that a lot of people liked. So I
Mhm.
really had to stay off the internet.
Yeah, which is not easy to do because the premiere has been out there for like a week and a half already now. So, Caleb, how about you?
I think it was drama, it was action, it was very good dialogue that made the drama feel like action. You didn't need a whole bunch of like catastrophic events to happen for it to be entertaining and engaging. And I think in that way, it really piqued my interest. I'm not the biggest fan of the. I like realistic fantasy, if that makes sense. And I feel like this could be like this Gotham felt like it could be in our current world in one way or another. There weren't any superheroes involved, there wasn't any superpowers. It was literally just like you're rooting for and against the main character at certain points, and you're rooting against him by rooting for the people who are literally just trying to eliminate him one way or another. And I think in that way it's again engaging and intriguing and complex, and I like the multi-layer things, so I would recommend it. With that said, I don't think I would watch it again. And that's not necessarily a ringing endorsement for people who are on the fence about it, but I think I would recommend it if people wanted to watch something that's a little bit more than just like a passive watch. Um, and I too forgot all of your questions.
No, you answered them just in a glob of words rather than bullet points, which is just fine.
That's my
So
favorite way.
you liked it, you would recommend it, and you mentioned the reasons why you would recommend it. So,
With that
uh,
said, without having like any spoilers, it has some heavy themes. So don't watch it and expect to be like, "Ooh, I feel like this was really uplifting and I feel so much better having watched it."
it's a great launching pad for my comments because I will add to the fact that I really enjoyed the show. It is not fun. It is not uplifting, like you said. It is gritty. It is dark. This is a villain origin story where you also get another villain included in the storytelling. I think it was Matt Reeves. I believe I read a quote where I think he put it perfectly. He's the executive producer of the show, but he wrote and directed um, the Batman, and he's writing and directing the Batman Part Two, and he's basically overseeing this whole DC Batverse, which is not going to be connected to anything else. He said that the show is about terrible people in a terrible place. Like this version of Gotham is absolutely just armpit level. It's terrible.
It's great.
Oh, it's so compelling.
I love it.
It's so compelling. I do too. And here's the thing: is that I usually don't eat up this kind of stuff. Like I don't need to see terrible people. You just can watch the news for that. I'm always talking about how I like my Star Wars served with the healthy side of hope, right? And I like you know the fun stuff, but this I was able to work past the dark and dingy kind of things because of the following reasons, and I too have recommended it to people, and this is why. Uh, First and foremost for me are the performances by Colin Farrell and Kristen Milioti. Those two people alone, I'm not going to rewatch the show, I don't think, because it's just that heavy, but I will watch like TikTok videos or Instagram reels of those two people in these roles for the rest of my life because they are absolutely brilliant. Brilliant. In addition to that, the story. I love the complex nature of the story. It's like I said, these are villains. They're really criminals, and they're doing criminal things with other criminals. And when it gets into like the gender politics of Sophia Falcone and her, I'm not going to go into spoilers, so don't worry, but her whole storyline and how she fits into this larger setting was absolutely captivating to me.
It's one
You
of the best
see,
origin stories I've ever seen.
but you get two of them, right? I think it's the Penguin and Sophia Falcone, whatever you want to call her. Those
Yeah,
are two origin stories that are absolutely side by side being told together that are two of the best ever, right? You
for
see
sure.
like the stuff with families, there's a whole lot of family stuff. There's sociological dynamics. There's a nature versus nurture storyline that we're going to get to. Um, so the story is just so compelling and so complex that if you just like that kind of stuff, you're going to eat this show up. And then you already mentioned it, Luke. You mentioned the world building. I feel like we've just got this fully fleshed out Gotham, right? And um, everybody felt like they were just in place. Nobody felt out of place because it was so grounded and so rooted in reality, right?
Yeah, I agree.
And I think, and it almost feels like you could pluck any character out of the show and make another show about them because of the time they took and the care to craft this entire story from top to bottom. Whether it's a minor character or not, it just feels like everybody has a place there. And I just really enjoyed it in a very different way for the kind of storytelling that I like to consume. But performance, story, and world building, those, and the score was fantastic too. Like this haunting score throughout the whole show. So
Yeah, I completely agree. I think that I'm surprised what you see or what you would have to say about the ending of it because that's some heavy stuff, and I uh I was surprised that you liked a story with so many terrible people in it, and then when you have an ending like that, I'm curious to see if it turned you off to the rest of it.
the ending was tough. Man. The ending was god awful. So we'll just go into spoiler territory now. I want to go through a couple of points in episode 6 and 7, but I feel like the meat is really in episode 8 in the finale. So we'll um, we'll touch on some things that I thought uh, were highlights of 6 and 7, but I'm sure we'll spend probably most of the time on the finale. So yeah, so going forward, if you haven't watched it, that was our pitch for you. Please go watch it if that's something you think, and give it a few episodes, and let us know what you think. If you have watched it, then continue listening to us talk about it because we're going to get into some details, which would include spoilers. So thanks for sticking around. So yeah, spoiler alert. Um, Episode 6, just some of the stuff that I thought was interesting was the whole, like, there's a couple of dinner scenes in this episode. You see Salvatore Moroni and Sophia. They've now fully like teamed up and they're cooking dinner together and they're having this chat over this meal, and then juxtapose that against like um I don't know if it's the next scene or a few scenes later, but Oz, after he like pulls his mom out of this ice cold bath that she's been sitting in all night, and then has this very heavy discussion with her about like she doesn't want to be a vegetable, she doesn't want to be stuck in comatose state. So basically they make this unspoken pact that like he's going to kill her when the time comes. And then they sit down and have this dinner with Vic, So it's like Vic, Oswald, and the mom, and just this is what I meant by criminals doing bad things in this world, because the whole world is full of criminals. So you see this, like, these are terrible people, but they're still finding this, in a sick, twisted way, they're finding this common ground with each other, and they're doing normal things like sitting down and having dinner with each other. I don't know. I'm watching this going like, what am I watching here? These are the Batman villains. They're sitting down having dinner and like this family dynamic. And that's the kind of thing that I think that this show really excelled at. So I don't know. It's just a weird observation on my part, maybe, but um, there that's really the thing. The other thing that happened in episode 6 was, Vic makes his first kill, and then again in another moment of like this terrible tenderness, Oswald like comforts him and tells him, it'll get better. Meaning, yeah, number one, you're going to kill more, and it's going to get easier. So it's just that's the complexity that I'm talking about. With these are not just straightforward villains doing bad things.
Yeah, and I think that's what the appeal is too, because it was it was surprising to me that I found myself through different points of this show rooting rooting for and against every character except
Yeah,
for Vic. Always rooting for Vic. Um
yeah,
but that, seeing them, they each character has redeeming qualities, and they start to butter you up a little bit, and then they go do something absolutely atrocious, and you're like, okay, well, that's why you're a bad guy. And especially in that episode, you see Salvatore is sort of just a wild dog at that point. All he wants is revenge.
yep,
He doesn't care about anything else. And then you start to see Sophia being a little bit more, this is the first episode of her in charge where she's the real boss.
yeah.
And I think that was the coolest I had seen her.
She's terrifying. She's absolutely terrifying, and it's not in a like monstrous way. It's how cool and calculated and under control she is, knowing that she can just become unhinged at any moment because of this trauma that she's lived through. The other complex scene that I felt was, and it was Sophia front and center, was when she went and confronted Eve, when Eve sent for her, and they have this just real woman to woman conversation about this man who has been manipulating, lying, and doing terrible things in their life. And it was raw, it was real, it was honest. And Sophia calls out Oz as the liar that he is, because they all hold this trauma in common, right? Where what's the dad's name? Carmine Falcone kills these women, frames his daughter for their death, but they're Eve's workers, right? So she had this familial connection with them. She thought Sophia had killed them. Ends up that never happened, and Oz knew about this the whole time. So like Oz is lying to her by not saying anything through all these years of them being together. So it just is this like, Oz isn't who you think he is. Here's the lies. Here's the truth about him. And I felt like Sophia walked through that door, she was going to kill Eve, just no doubt about it. And then she pulls this curveball where I think she found a level of respect for Eve in that conversation, and then she lets her live and walks away. And then Eve rewards her with the information she's looking for, and she sells Oz out. I was just captivated. It's captivating. The whole thing was captivating to me.
Yeah, I agree. And then I think it was also another level of understanding to Oz that I think was really important, because now it wasn't like Oz is just some dirty cutthroat that, he actually has different layers to him, and I think that changed her approach too, because it was no longer just about killing Oz; it was about hurting him as well,
Yeah.
and it wasn't just about taking her drug empire back. It was about making sure that she satisfied the need that she had to hurt him.
Which I think leads her to this big revelation, and I think it was in episode 7, maybe it was in 8, where she says something to the effect of, um, she left one institution just to go right into another, and I think it was in the 7th episode, when she's talking to Oswald's mom, and she just says, "Hey, you're just playing the same game, right?" Anyway, so that I think that's the highlights for 6. We'll get into 7 now, unless Caleb, you had any thoughts on any of the stuff we've been talking about with episode 6.
I watched them all back to back to back, so I don't think I could distinguish no, 6, 7, and 8.
You just watched a big long penguin movie.
Exactly.
Okay, well, let's get into 7 then. I'll just tell you that it's 7 because this is the backstory, right? This is through through the whole show, they've been making references to the fact that Oz lost his brothers, that his brothers died. And in this episode, we find out that Oz is the one that was responsible for their death. Now, he didn't actively kill his brothers, but he put them in a situation that if he did nothing, they were going to die. So is that murder? I think that's the gray area that Oswald or Oz Cobb in this iteration of the character, I think that's where he operates, right? In these gray areas. He is absolutely responsible for their deaths, but he didn't pull any triggers, right? He just locked them in a cellar that was going to flood. Um, and went home and had a wonderful evening with his mom, right? This is the first indication that this guy is way more than what we've met, and that he's an absolute monster. A monster. And it was so chilling to me, just the whole dynamic of that, and the point of view that we're getting, because then later on we get a different point of view from the mom's side of things. So let's just tackle that one real quick. What were your thoughts as this was playing out, and it's being revealed to us that this death that has driven so much of the story was actually caused by the main character when he was a kid?
Yeah, I was confused because I thought that at first it was going to be like, oh, I made a terrible mistake and this was a whole accident. And then it wasn't. And then I was like, oh, okay, well now we're going to be following his why, and why did he do the things that he did. But the craziest part about it to me was the fact that he didn't even care about them in the way that, like, I'm angry at you and I'm going to kill you for what you've done to me. It was simply that they were in the way. He just wanted his mom to himself, and then they were either taking some of her attention away, or he had to be different around them or anything like that. And that was really important for the last scene of the show, which we'll get to. But it was I kept thinking, like, okay, so he's a serial killer in all of this. Or not a serial killer, like he's a psychopath.
Mm-hmm.
He feels no remorse for what he did. He doesn't see anything wrong with it. And then when you go down that path of, like, okay, well, if that's his thought process, there is everything he's doing guided by that. And it really made me think about all the other terrible things he's done and start thinking about, well, why did you do that there? And why'd you do that there?
Yeah, there's a whole thing. It's a whole thing. There's so many different things that were coming to my mind as a result of this revelation. But what did you think about it, Caleb?
I think it did show us his why. I like that phrase, Luke. because he's selfish, he's self-serving, and it's not like he was trying to. I think his mom gives him too much credit later in the show by saying you got rid of my two babies because like I was providing for all three of you. You didn't need to do that. I could still have provided for all three of you. I don't think he was thinking that far down the line. I just thought he thought, okay, this is a good opportunity for me. You guys were mean to me. You guys are always mean to me in his brain. So I'm just gonna do this thing to keep you away, not worried about the consequences, even if it came out as fatally and catastrophically as it did. Um, but he's just taking advantage of opportunity for self-serving purposes, and that's just how he is. And it just gave to me, it just made him more cynical than anything else. Um, and it definitely changed my like it changed who I was rooting for. I felt myself not root for him anymore after that.
I agree with you, especially with the rooting thing. As the show is going on, like there's so many different pivots. Sophia Falcone is a monster. Oz Cobb is a monster. But they're doing things that are making you feel sympathy towards for them, and in a way root for them. I remember, I don't know if it was the first episode that we did on the Penguin or the second one, but I remember talking about like who are we rooting for in this show, because it's just so many, there's so many terrible people, but at the same time the show has made them sympathetic because, and this is where the nature versus nurture thing came in. Like, is Oz the way he is or was because of it's just a nature thing in him, or is it the environment that he's growing up in? The selfishness that he is motivated by, because all he will tell you, all he wants is the best for his mom. But really, what does that mean? Isn't he validating himself by going and doing these things,
Exactly.
quote unquote, for his mom? So isn't that actually selfish? It's not for his mom, it's for him. And he sees his brothers as getting in the way of that. So when he removes them from that equation, that's perfect for him, because now he's got the life he wants with his mom. Uh, all of it was just so sickening. And what I think is best about it is that they didn't make either of our main villains someone that you want to root for in the end, right? Because these are villains, and I think if you make them too sympathetic, then you're taking away their point as a villain. They doubled down, and in some cases tripled down, on making sure we know, no, these people are monsters. You don't want to root for these people, no matter what their motivations are. And that's one of the reasons that I liked the ending of the show. But before we get done with 7, what did you guys think? Unless you have something else you wanted to add, feel free. But then tell me about how you thought. What did you think about how Salvatore Moroni died? I thought that was brilliant, the way that they put that all together. But I'd love to hear what you guys thought.
I I thought it was funny at first, but then when I saw Oswald's reaction, I thought that's important. That matters, because it wasn't good enough that just like, oh, my enemy or nemesis is out of the way and now my life is easier. It was important to Oz that to feed his insecurities and his ego. It was important that Salvatore knew that it's not just Salvatore losing, it's Oz winning. It was
Yep.
at the hands of Oz that he
So
died.
how did he die? Like, did he just like have a
It,
heart attack?
yeah, because
It seemed like
he was physically exerting himself so much, and he's an older guy, that he ended up having a heart attack and just died right there in front of Oz. which is one of the worst things that could have happened for Oz because, like you said, Luke, he needed that win, right? Oz needed that win, not only just for himself, but he needed everyone to know, like, I killed Salvatore Moroni. So he had to put a few bullets into him just to make sure everybody knew that he won, right? So I thought the way that he was robbed of that victory, I thought was just brilliant on the writer's part. So, all right, you want to get into the finale then?
Yes, that was, I think, the most important part of the show, as like most finales are, but this one especially.
Yeah, especially so in this one. So just hit me with it. What did you? I mean, just a real quick rundown. We see everything from Francis's point of view. So the mom, we realize that she knew the whole time that he killed his brothers. That she's been lying to him this whole time, putting on this fake life of this loving mother, even though she was terrible to him a lot too. Um, Sophia engineers this terrible group therapy session, turns them against each other, which I thought was absolutely a gut punch. Um, Sophia realizes this is all screw all this. I'm out of here. She engineers a way for the crime bosses to get Oz to her. Oz flips the script again, takes her off. She thinks he's going to kill her, turns her into the cops, sends her to the absolute worst place in the universe, sends her back to Arkham. And she gets a letter from her half sister, which I thought was sort of cool. Oz ends up on top. And then absolutely the most disturbing two things happen in this episode that I'm going to hold off on because I know we're going to get to it. So just tell me what you guys think about this finale, and then we'll get into the terrible parts.
It really, really, really frustrated me, and I think that means that it was a good ending because it wasn't satisfying at all, but it was important and it was hard to watch, and I think that um, it's an excellent way to build off of because I don't need another season of the Penguin.
Right.
But if I see this Penguin in the Batman 2, I'm going to be so excited because this Penguin is, to me, similar in how interested in I am in his psyche and his intentions, and I respect how dangerous he is the same way I would with the Riddler from the first Batman or the Joker in other stories.
Yeah, I agree with you. This is this Batverse that they're building. They're doing it the right way. I think that they've. I mean, we all really enjoyed the Batman, and I'm loving the fact that they took the slow burn approach with the Penguin development and Sophia, who ended up turning into Gigante, which I thought was also a very cool part of the show. Uh, but they have these two very well developed villains ready for
Why
the
is
Batman Part 2, if they even need to use them.
why is that important? I didn't understand that.
The whole Gigante thing,
Yeah.
just because she's breaking out of the mold of her father and the prison that really her father had put her in, that she was not only rejecting her father and everything that had to do with him, but she was standing up in with her mother's name, who was
But
murdered by her father.
it does I sort of get all that, but it doesn't have like any bigger comic book anything.
No, I don't think so. I think it was just a symbolism of tearing down the Falcone family and building it up for her own,
Gotcha.
and under the Gigante name. But she ultimately ends up turning her back on all of it because she doesn't want to just keep playing that same game. So, um,
That's what you they like that's what's literally said, but with the ending of the show and with what Oz did to her, she's definitely not done.
100%, 100%. She's still a piece like a game piece in on the board. I think she's going to be way different than what we saw up to this point, though, because I just think another stint in Arkham is probably going to push her over the edge into some probably very violent things, and all the control we saw her exert probably is not going to be on the table anymore. Maybe, I don't know. We'll see. But Caleb, what do you think about the finale itself? And then we'll get into the disturbing stuff.
It really, really set me up to just be in love with Batman 2 because it's very obvious that Penguin's going to play a part of that, and maybe they've confirmed it or not. I just have either missed that or forgotten it. Um, but it's really made me dislike Oz. I thought it was a really cool way for him to get the final lick on um now I forget her name.
Who? His girlfriend?
Sophia.
Sophia, thank you.
Sophia.
Um to be like, okay, yeah, you're never gonna have peace and you're going to hell, all this whatever, and then just having the police waiting for her. I thought that was really cool. Um but that's really the only thing that I liked about Oz in that entire episode. I felt like everything he did made me dislike him more. And normally I can set aside certain things and like appreciate a villain. I just understand this villain. I don't appreciate it. And like the end scene where he's forcing his mom to look through the penthouse with the highest view, and he's like looking at her, he's like, I know, I'm so happy too. And she's literally crying and like unable to move or express anything other than that one sad tear, just because now he's proud and now he's making, like, I don't know if it's just her or whoever he will have in his penthouse now, acting like that's his mom and trying to fulfill a childhood promise that he just obviously can't cope with not having fulfilled it. And then like the cherry on top was Vic. I knew he was gonna die. I knew it was gonna happen. From the very, very beginning, I loved his character, and I knew as soon as like they were buttering us up to be like, oh my god, this guy is doing great. He's We're rooting for him to be worse, which is always a strange um I don't know. It's a strange thing. But I knew he was gonna die. I thought he was gonna be strapped to the bomb that was in the back of the G Wagon, and that's what they sort of made you think. Then I realized, okay, no, that's probably been done too much in general. So for him to die the way he did was just sickening.
Oh, sickening is the right word. Is the right word. I agree with every single thing that you said, and I think that that's all the point. Like you said, that you understand him as a villain, but you don't appreciate him. I agree. I think that we are supposed to despise this person by the end of this series. I don't think that they wrote this story to make him sympathetic or to make him someone that we want to root for. I
I
think that
agree
we're
with you.
supposed to dislike him strongly.
I agree with you. I
And they
think,
do. And they win. They win in that regard because of
yeah,
the things that they have him where they have him end up.
absolutely. And I think also the fact that, we know that there are going to be more stories told. It changes the way I'm looking at Gotham now. Not just because of the Penguin, but I don't think it should be understated that they all the heads of the crime families are dead now. And not just the
Yeah.
big ones. Not the Falcones are all gone. The Maronis are all gone, and those are the two
Hmm.
big ones. And then
Hmm.
even all the little ones, all the second in commands and all of them killed all their bosses. It's
Yep.
a completely new era in Gotham, and this all because of Oz. And I think that you know I really liked Oz throughout parts of the show. I really did, especially with the
Yeah.
things he was doing for Vic, and I really liked Vic, and I hated seeing him go. But I thought it made for an incredible story. I really did.
I think that's exactly the thought I needed to say my final thought on the show. And you said to pitch it to your friends who are sort of on the fence about it, not really interested in continuing to watch it. I think it does a great job of making you so invested in the show, and you don't even have to like the main character to love the show.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. The as this as this finale kept going, it just kept getting more and more disturbing. Really, in the last, I don't know, 5 to 7 minutes, I did not see him murdering Vic coming. I didn't see it, especially after Vic made his first kill and that whole, you know, him consoling him and telling him it's going to get better. But when he did that, it made perfect sense because he said Vic literally told him that he's family,
Yeah.
and he saw how much that would make him weak, and he doesn't have the time or the ability to be weak anymore, not where he's at.
But it wasn't
But
even
it's
just
so
that.
disturbing.
I couldn't help but think, what if Vic didn't say that? Does he survive? But immediately I thought no,
Yeah.
because not only is that F word worse for him than the cuss one, um, but he can't help but keep everybody under his thumb, and he didn't want Vic to get too big. He didn't want Vic to be too comfortable. Like, those are all things that I thought of by that action, by that intent behind it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think he did have love for his siblings, and he was willing to kill them too. So of course Vic is on the table, but I also think that Vic, like it's important that they did love each other like family, because if they hadn't, he wouldn't have done that. And I think that that's so important because now you're looking at Oz as this person, like compelling villains. You can, if you can't really relate to them, at least you can understand them, or they have respectable attributes about them, right? But I don't understand any of Oz. I can't relate to him. I don't respect any of that,
No.
because all of the things, all of the morals that we have, and all of the rules that we place upon ourselves, in the way that we treat people and the way that we go about our life, are completely backwards with him. And the fact that I say we, but I feel comfortable speaking for other people in this, because I think most people like myself were on his side at the beginning. We were like, yeah, go ahead, kill kill that first Falcone, Alberto, right? You know,
Yeah.
he's a terrible person. Go ahead, kill him. That's fine. Or, go ahead and start this entire war between two families and lie to both sides and do all this. That all of that's okay. But now looking back, I just think like there were all these signs, and the fact that I didn't see this coming from the beginning just means that I was sort of enamored with this person. And if I had been paying attention, I probably would have seen this coming.
Yeah, he's an absolute monster, and the signs were there from the beginning. But then they confuse us with his underdog story. Him preaching the underdog angle to people, and his talking about loyalty, and his wanting to help his mom, and being affected by the deaths of his brothers. But all of that stuff ends up being just smoke and mirrors for this psychopath. Uh, and then only to outdo itself, the episode continues on. And Caleb, you mentioned he's now got his mother in that view that he's been promising her, but now she's not comatose. She's awake and can see things and think things, and is in the state that she did not want to be in. And then he goes downstairs and starts dancing with Eve, who has now become basically like the new Ma, because she's wearing the same dress. She's telling him the same things that he wants her to say. And going back to the Sophia and Eve's scene where they talk about, oh, you know what to tell men, you know what men want to hear, and you've been telling Oz things that he's been wanting to hear. Now she's just doing the exact same thing. All of it at the end was just it was like this disturbing cocktail of developments that by the end of the final scene of the show, when they pan out to Gotham's skyline, and I was able to take a deep sigh of relief, thinking, "Oh, they're going to give us the bat signal. Oh, they're going to give us the bat signal." And then they gave us the bat signal. And I thought that was just a perfect way to end the show off. So, um, to finish out our conversation, feel free to share anything you have on your mind about those things, but also how did you like or not like the way that they used Batman or didn't use Batman in this series? Because for my money, it was perfect. I thought it was very good.
I think I agree. I didn't need Batman in this, and I think it's important to ignore that kind of crutch, because if you start overusing it, then it takes away from the story you're trying to tell. Because you have one Easter egg here, and then everyone else is just going to be watching the rest of the show looking for other Easter eggs like that. So the fact that the only one in the entire show was right at the end, I think, was perfect. Um, I also think that with everything happening going on in Gotham, I am, I saw some people saying like, "Oh, well, why isn't Batman doing anything about this?" And this is the most pressing thing in Gotham. I think the people in charge of this story are too smart to just to chalk it up to he is hanging out in the Batcave. I think
Yeah.
deeper than that. So I'm curious to know what else is going on, because really this story is pretty isolated. They most of it just takes place in Crown Point and the Falcone house, and then
Hmm.
flashbacks, and then the tunnels. They're not really going to a lot of different places.
Yeah.
Gotham's a really big place, so I'm really glad that they gave us just enough, but I'm glad they didn't give us very much at all.
So two things. I like that they didn't have any Batman usage. I think it's justifiable enough to say like it's a good example of how much crime is actually going on in Gotham and how
True.
little control Batman has of the city at this point in time. So I didn't think that people can be like, "Oh my God, why isn't Batman doing anything in this?" That was never even something that popped into my head. The second thing is I don't know why my brain always thinks like this, but like Colin Farrell, big star. Sophia Falcone, I forget the actress's name, also a big star. There are big actors and big names in this show, but there are levels to this. And I never ever ever considered Robert Paddington Bear to be a part of a TV show in any capacity.
Yeah. I agree with that. I don't know how I would even feel seeing a man in a Batman suit show up in any capacity in this show. I'll totally be down for it in the movie because it's the Batman movie, but yeah, I don't know that I would have. I don't know if it would have worked. I think it was just perfect the way that they handled it. I want to put one final thought in there, and I think that this is, you wonder like what is the redeeming quality of a story like this. In my opinion, it's a cautionary tale, and I'm going to share a quote that came from Deidre O'Connell, who plays Frances Cobb, the mom, and it's basically in the context of the quote. Oz ends up on top, right? Oz is singularly obsessed with being on top. He'll tell you that it was for his mom, but we all know that it's really not. And she said the story is about having to fully stare into what that desire, the selfish desire of being on top, actually gets you, which is less than nothing. He is surrounded by falsehoods and lies and things that he's created around him, but at what cost? He's this monster. He has people that are only going to tell him what he wants to hear around him. He's literally put his mother in a prison. He's killed the only other person that probably would have actually had his best interest at heart. And he ends up he's got all these things, quote unquote. He's now the kingpin of Gotham crime, but really, what does he have? He has less than nothing. And I just think that quote from that performer really hit the nail on the head. It's a cautionary tale. This is not glorifying any of these things. It's warning, don't be selfish, right? That's what I took out of it. So great show.
I agree, and I think the fact that he was so delusional that when Sophia's trying to get him to admit it, and I don't even think it was an act that he was putting on. He was genuine. Like,
He couldn't.
I have no idea.
Yeah.
I have no idea what you're talking about. The guards were so high up that he didn't even have to act. And then his mother stabs him
Yep.
and says that she wanted to kill him as a child,
Yep.
and then tries to kill him now. And he still won't confront that
Nope.
part of his past.
Yep.
And that's insane. And I think that makes for such an interesting character and such a dangerous character.
My final thought, and it's legitimately my final thought, is it taught me something. It taught me that both you, Dad, and you, Luke, do an incredible Oz Cobb impression, and you guys promised to do it on the show, so go for it.
We're going to recreate a scene from The Batman with Robert Paddington Bear. You're going to say, La Rata Alada. No, El Rata Alada. El Rata Alada.
El Rata Alada.
El Rata? That's the worst Spanish I ever heard. It's La.
Okay, I was just trying to put you guys on the spot, but that's actually pretty good.
And that is a perfect way to end today's show. So I'm not even going to take us out with my normal thing. We're just going to end off right there with La Rata Elada. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, let us know. You can find the ColbyCast on Instagram, Threads, and X at the ColbyCast. Episodes can also be found on YouTube, so like and subscribe. If you feel so inclined, rate and review our show on your podcatcher of choice. That really helps the show beat the algorithm and helps us find new friends to add to the conversation. If you're wordy, like me, you can send an email to thecolbycast@gmail.com. All music is licensed through Adobe Stock and performed by Pro Music 24. This podcast is not endorsed by anyone or anything for that matter. It's intended for entertainment and informational purposes only. All original content of this podcast is the intellectual property of the ColbyCast unless otherwise indicated.
That'll do, donkey. That'll do.